Brad Matheny. Today's the 30th of April. We're looking at a kind of a funny story this morning. I just got done doing the first video and realized I forgot to turn on my microphone. I guess it happens. Maybe I needed a little more coffee this morning. Who the heck knows? Okay, so we're moving into my May low. So let me highlight this pattern right here. This is my vertical line for my May low. And this is the area where I think that we're going to see some bit of a breakdown coming in right in today, May 30th. So we could be looking at a fairly sharp breakdown into May 5th, 6th, 7th. The real reality here, guys, is that the May low, if it shows up based on my prediction, is going to put us probably down in this 510, 520 area, maybe a bit lower. So I'm looking for kind of a breakdown below this yellow window. Really just looking for a move below this yellow window into the 510, 520 area, right down near this level, 508, call it 508 to 518. And the cycle patterns suggest that we have a rolling kind of a downward trend into this bottom, setting up tomorrow. A bottom pattern means we get selling, trying to find support. And then the major crush pattern on Friday could be a very big breakdown. Big. I mean, huge. Major crush patterns, are typically big breakdowns, very big moves to the downside. Given the volatility that we've had recently, we could be looking at a move on Friday down into the 510, 511 area, maybe. We'll see. It's tough to estimate, but major crush is typically a very big bar. So we'll see if there's news or something happens. I don't know, but it looks like we're going to be breaking to the downside. At least I am planning for this breakdown, and we'll see how it plays out. Now, the QQQ is going to be looking the same way. Again, we are going to be looking potentially for this 430, 420 area in the QQQ. We're already down about 2% today, so already breaking downward fairly hard. I think that we're looking at 2 or 3 days here, maybe 4 or 5 days, a pretty solid breakdown into this area, and really playing out, as a deep kind of a downward trend, pulling back fairly aggressively to below this low. Okay, I think really you've got to understand that this standout low is our real last level of support. So you're talking basically 430, which means we could get down into 425, 424 fairly easily. And I think we're going to be looking at a pretty big breakdown if my pattern plays out the way I expect. Not new lows, I'll tell you that, but we could come down and retest these recent lows. 410, 420, 430, I think is a pretty easy number to hit. Okay, gold and silver. I highlighted all of these in the last video. Gold and silver are moving into a nothing pattern here. Then we get into this inverted, it's a counter trend, bottom gap rally, which means that we'll be looking at a top sell-off. And the way I think that this is playing out, you can see that silver, this is a 4-hour chart, has moved into this consolidation range with a cradle pattern here. I think that we're really looking at, if I were to try to draw what I think is going to happen, we're going to look at some sort of a rotation and then the breakaway. So be prepared. I think that's fairly likely. And here we're looking at a flagging pattern after this big pullback. So we can see we've got down, up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're almost near the end. We're going to roll potentially up. I think gold and silver, though, need to get past Monday, Tuesday of next week to really begin a rally. So I don't think we're going to see any big rally this week in gold and silver. Buying down here near these lows is pretty good. We got a nice little bounce taking place currently off of these lows, below 3,300 and below 33 over here. You can see this nice little bounce taking place right here. But again, I don't think we're going to see any big rally in gold until next week. I think it's going to take all the way out here. Well, Thursday, Friday, maybe Friday on this cycle, maybe Friday. This is the Friday's rally phase. That's right at the end of the flagging, and this would put us right here, Friday. Yeah, I mean Friday could come in and play a big rally phase right there. That's 2 days from now. So you've got really consolidation taking place over the next day or 2, and then Friday we might get a big move, and that could be because of the crush pattern. So we'll see. Crush patterns, remember, the metals can actually tank during extreme panic selling. That's called panic mode in metals, where traders sell everything. But at the same point in time, given where metals are, it would be fantastic if metals shot straight up. That would make me happy. I'm in a position to try to catch the move upward in metals, but we need to see metals move higher away from that panic selling on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday that might be taking place. Okay, this will be a shorter video today, which is great because I gone through everything in the first video, meaning that, oh, I forgot to talk a little bit about the news. I read some news last night that shipping out of Chinese ports has dropped more than 60% since the tariffs. And need you to understand that's pretty big. Okay, imagine an economy taking a 60% or 50% hit because of tariffs, and really, if their ports are slowing down, the news is that in the port of LA, which is Long Beach, they're saying that we've got maybe about 8 weeks of supply from products from China before that supply runs out. So, think about your trinkets, what you need, and maybe pick them up before the newer products run out. But this is going to be a game of chicken, so to say, between the U.S. and China. Who flinches first, in my opinion? And we'll see how it plays out because you know we have almost everything we need, and local warehouses will be fairly well supplied with a lot of things. But it is what it is. We just trust me. I'm going to be making a run to the Dollar Tree and Walmart to make sure that we have essentially what we need, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, like I said, we'll plan on dealing with whatever comes. But again, Chinese economy really is staggering as far as how much they're risking right now playing this game of chicken. They've already had their first quarter was the worst quarter in decades, literally having the worst economic performance in decades in the first quarter of 2025, and now they're playing chicken, and their port shipping ports have dropped by 60% or more. And you can imagine what that economy must look like if they're not shipping anything. They can't be stacking up manufacturing left and right. In other words, they've gone through it's almost like their own version of self-inflicted COVID. If they're not shipping, they're not making. If they're not making, they're not working. If they're not working, they're not spending. And so, understand it's a very interesting type of scenario. We'll have to I look at it as a game of chicken between Trump and China. Who's going to flinch first? We shall see. But again, like I talked about, very difficult to make up the U.S. market by going outside the U.S. There's just nothing really comparable to the primary U.S. market. If you think Canada can pick it up, go for it. You're talking 35 million people to 350 million people. That's 1/10 the size. So even if they did pick up the slack, that's only 1/10 the size of the U.S. market, with possibly similar spending power. And I guarantee you, I don't think Canadians want to buy 9 brooms or 9 individual pieces of Tupperware when they only need one. The idea is that within some reason we got to realize that the U.S. market is the dominant economic market on the planet. So again, I'm going to come back over here to Bitcoin, do the last little Bitcoin thing before we run out of time. Bitcoin is stalling. Remember, I think we're moving into, some consolidation here. So I'm really looking at that, May 5th, 6th, 7th area, bringing us back down into this 86, 85, maybe back down into this 82 area, because the reality is that this has been a speculative move. This entire move up, in my opinion, was kind of a speculative move on earnings, and on expectations, which is really a carryover of January, February, March. We talked about the trend the other day, and the transportation index, which measures essentially forward transports. Remember, this is a good measure of the general economy in the sense that, if right now, hypothetically, we're in end of April going into May. So you would have to look at 6 months out into the future. This would be potentially transporting products for Halloween and Thanksgiving right now. That's the way the things work. You have to understand that we're in May. The things that we're buying right now were shipped to us back in Christmas. Christmas stuff gets shipped to us back in May, June, and July. And then of course there's that 6 month lag. So you have to understand that right now we're moving into shipping of Christmas stuff, which would normally be happening right now. Retailers would be placing orders for Christmas stuff and Thanksgiving stuff because they've already ordered their March, April, May stuff. That's already been, in other words, the summertime stuff has already been shipped and has been warehoused and is here. That's ready already for us. We're going into Christmas, is what we would be ordering right now. So you can see cyclically, we'll come back over here to the weekly data. And so let's look through the summer months, try to do a cycle, find my time cycles. So we'll go through July because it's marked here. So there's our July cycles. And you can see that we don't always run into weaker July cycles. You can see here we're moving down into July in 2022. We're moving through a weaker cycle in 2023. We're moving near a peaking cycle in 2024. And then here we have a much weaker cycle in 2025. But, we do typically get some downward cycle trend. So here, for example, was a downward trend. Here was a moderate downward trend. Here was a fairly severe downward trend. This was a peaking pattern. This was actually rallying after this big COVID breakdown. This was a moderate breakdown, a rally, and then, of course, a breakdown. So you can see that, what happens is we get into these breakdown periods during economic contraction. And so we had the rally out here in 2023. We didn't really start to rally until this area out here in 2024, but we still had these summertime contractions. This was an election. This was the early stage bottom. Remember, we bottomed right in this area in the market, but we didn't get real confirmation of the bottom until here, right in this area. And again, we've got this very deep contraction. Now, I would suggest that, we are moving into a fairly strong contractionary phase, meaning that we would likely attempt to bottom in this area before we attempt to move back into growth. And the only way we're going to move back into growth, in my opinion, is we move back into more normal economic function, which again is a game of chicken right now. So we could see very solid stagnation down in this area for 5, 6, 7 months. Be prepared. I don't think we're going to see big rallies in the market once the real news starts to hit. Okay, guys, sorry for the screw up. This is video number 2. Might be a little late today, but I'm posting it now. Go ahead and get some and be prepared for that breakdown.